Hello, everybody. This is Stephanie and Chelsea, and we are the co founders of CS Planners. And today we are talking about mental health because I know there's a lot of people right now that are struggling. And let me tell you, that everybody tells you to spend time on yourself, spend time really focusing on how you can heal yourself. And the thing is, I remember people telling me this for years. I feel like my entire life until just recently I realized why. Because eventually it will catch up to you. So I feel like today we're talking about mental health just to really help you to be able to heal your mind and soul.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about mental health is because I've been talking to a lot of people who, we're coming up on a year of being in lockdown. Like it's almost been
It,
one full year, and people are now reflecting on what has happened over that past year. For some people, a lot of incredible things have come from it, and from others, it's feel like they've lost that year. And no matter what your perspective of that year is, you're going to be right.
I know I feel I'm not sure if it's just me that thinks this, but just based on my observation around, I almost feel like there's two completely different, like opposite ends of how people are dealing with it. Either it's just like I said, like incredible, or like they're very struggling. I don't really know a whole lot of people that are kind of in the middle, which I see a lot of people that are like struggling. They're so like they're financially, they're not really sure what they're going to do. They realize like, it's hard because it's such a huge challenge. And then there's the other people that I feel like COVID just completely boosted. And I feel like more like people that I know, like there's a lot of people that it's hard because it's been, yeah, almost a year in lockdown. I don't think anybody ever expected any of us to be in lockdown for a year. I know I was thinking more along the lines of a month, but like when I
Even
remember,
after 2 weeks, you're like, so we're good to meet. I was like, no, Steph, we're in a lockdown.
I often live in my own little bubble on a good day. So like I always do. Like I always live in my own bubble. And I remember like I remember saying that to you. I'm like, okay, so we're back to normal. And I'm like, no, like COVID's still going. And then it shocks me, like, oh, we're still in COVID. So I know like people often like, or me at least, I was expecting more along the lines of a year to 2 weeks. So I know now, or couple months, not really a year long, right? So now we're coming up on the year. And Chelsea, what advice would you give to those that are struggling? Like, how do you say you would, like, what can people do to help them, like, just to keep moving forward?
So this is something I've been thinking a lot about over probably the past week. I feel when people first went into lockdown, there were two kinds of people: those that were really stressed and anxious about a lockdown, and those that were thriving. And I feel like we're now at that point where that switched. So those that were really terrified when the lockdown happened are now the ones that, they're living their best life. And those that were thriving when it first happened, they're now at the point where they're like, okay, like introverts. A lot of introverts are now like, okay, well, I'm now craving those interactions. Now, I'm going to explain my perspective of that based off of a combination of also talked about manifesting. So I think COVID and in general, people have this idea of where their life is going to be. And especially that's what you do when you're manifesting. You have this goal, this is what you want, that's what you're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, it was so focused on trying to achieve that I stopped thinking about everything else. And I just kind of want to stop and talk about my personal journey. I'm a mindset person. My mind has always been very good at talking myself down out of any type of crisis situation. But at the same time, I always had distractions. I always had things to help me direct my energy towards. So if I was going through when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, I was very mentally strong, but I was also working 3 jobs and going to school. And I also was just graduating and I was starting a job. So like I had other things to distract myself about or with.
Do you think like the distractions are what helped you get through? Like do you think people use that, like almost like having all those distractions as a way just for them to not deal with it, like deal with like what
Yeah,
they're going
so there's
through?
two types of people. I think for myself, I didn't use those distractions as a way to forget. I was always like, so when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, it was okay. I thought about it, processed it, and was like, well, I can't. Sitting here is not going to do anything, so I need to keep busy. But some people use those distractions. So if someone was told that their mom was diagnosed with cancer, they would immediately find those distractions without mentally preparing themselves to be okay. So I feel
Mhm.
like for that, there's two different ways to approach it. I've always been, okay, so what are the next steps? And I'm constantly looking forward to what we need to do to fix a situation. And then I use those other things to fill that time, whether it was working full time or doing whatever. But I've also gotten to a point now, a year later in COVID, where we're successful with doing less than what I was doing in my full time job. So, in my full time job, working that 9 to 5, I wasn't working 9 to 5. I was working probably 6 days a week over like 60 hours sometimes, which for some people watching this, that might not be a lot, but I had those distractions. And then I had my social life and I had all those other things. I was able to go out. I was able to go to a bar and have some drinks with friends. You had all those distractions. Where for me, I'm an introvert. So when I'm sitting there thinking, I I need to talk to somebody. Like for me, a big sign was I'm lonely. And I've never ever felt lonely before in my life. And I want to you are mentally strong. What maybe you're a mom and you're always trying to keep it together for your family, or maybe you've just always been that rock in somebody's life that you never feel like it's okay for you to have a down day or for you to feel depressed. And that's where a lot of people struggle too, is that I feel like people associate, well, if you're depressed, then you have mental health concern that you need to deal with. And it's immediately going into a crisis mode and we need to fix this. You need to manage this. But depression is also just a feeling. And for me, I've never felt depressed before in my life. I've never had that feeling because I've always been very, very good until I've been at a point where I haven't talked to anybody in so long. Or, I've worked jobs where I've been constantly challenged and had to prove myself to people. I haven't had people challenging me. So I feel like my mind was like, what's going on? I'm now recognizing that these things that I used to always have to fight for, I've always had to prove myself, I've always had to do these things. And I've always wanted to be alone, but now I'm sitting here lonely and wishing somebody was challenging me or pushing me. And I went through a state of depression. And I feel like a lot of people, when they listen to that, they might be like, okay, well, now you need to go get help because now you're struggling with mental health. I will never, I mean, maybe someday in the future, but as of right now, I won't tell you I struggle with mental health. I struggle with emotions sometimes. And, sometimes days are really, really good. And sometimes days aren't so good. And that's okay. And some people, absolutely, it is mental health, but everyone has their own things. And I feel like it's really important for people to not generalize or be like, well, you were happy and now you're mad, or you're a mindset person and now you're depressed. Like, people aren't just one solid state. People aren't just constantly happy all the time. And that's okay. But I think it's important for people to know, if you know somebody who's going through that, just be there, because usually those mindset people are also people that know how to get themselves out of it, but they just need to be in that moment. Because for me, I need to think through those emotions. I can't have other people tell me what to do. So if someone were to say, maybe you should speak to someone, excuse me, maybe you should speak to someone. I think for me it's like, but that I know is not going to help me. I know I need to do this on my own. I need to have those internal conversations because I need to find the root of this thing, because I don't ever feel like this. So, and I don't want to continue feeling like this. So I need to do the work myself and get right to the bottom of it.
So how would you say, like, I guess would be the line between, like, I feel like there's a line where you can deal with it yourself and you think you can, but then also you have to have a balance of being able to reach out for help. What kind of would you say would help people kind of decide, like, or what questions can they ask themselves to help them decide, like, whether it's something they can deal with themselves or if they need to, like, have other help?
I think everyone knows who they are. Everyone knows how they personally work. So there's people like for yourself, you're a social person. You talk to others. So for you, talking to others might be beneficial for you. For me, talking to others only hurts me sometimes because I'm getting that information in where it's just like it's not going to help, you know? So I feel like if you're in a position where you're struggling, you know what's best for you. If you're at a point where you're like, you know, maybe I need to talk to somebody and my social circle aren't they're not the people I need to talk to, maybe that's when you consider getting help. Or if you know that if someone's telling you what to do and that is just not helping you in any way, you know that. So you need to be the one that determines what's best for you. And if you think that you can do it on your own and you want to try doing it on your own, but really you're a social person, if at least trying, go for it. But you know usually what is best for you.
I like that. And I feel like that's so important, especially when people working on mindset, because I feel like it's important to know that you can continuously be working on mindset. You can have like a really good mindset most of the time and still have a bad day.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like it's a continuous journey of it, right? Like there's no like end point where like, okay, that's it. I've reached, like, you can have those mindset goals, but then you always have other, like, there's always, like, I feel like it's a continuous thing. When you have that, that's when you feel most balanced. I remember thinking, like, when I was working on my mindset with everything to do with my son, I feel like a big part of it, and I hit something where I all of a sudden felt like I need to be perfect about everything. I couldn't be anxious at all about my son because that means, you know, I was struggling a lot and, you know, I needed help. Like, no, I feel like for me, it was having that balance. Like, yeah, I am going to have hard days and that is okay. And maybe do something on those hard days, do something for you and, you know, deal with, you know, yourself. What makes you feel good? What do you like to do? Whether it be reading or anything to, like, self-care, right? For you on those days that you do feel like, you know, have a bad day. Cause, you know, we're all human. We all have, you know, bad days, right? But I feel like having a balance and knowing that it's okay to have a bad day, that you can have a bad moment and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It still, like, you can still have incredible control over your mind and still have a bad day, because I feel like that's necessary. We're all human. And I feel like it's needed, because if you don't, then it just builds up. And then all of a sudden it will catch up to you. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like there's always lessons within those states. So like, I do feel like those that are struggling longer term with mental health, and this is just, I'm not a mental health expert. This is just from those conversations I've had with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of people who have like deep rooted things that over the years, and that's why they need a therapist, because they're constantly rediscovering new things. And that's why I want to compare it with manifesting, because in a way, when you're manifesting, you're creating and stepping into that new version of yourself. And so we've been talking about manifesting a lot. And I find those, or at least for myself, every time I'm getting to a new step, I have that breakdown and new things are coming to me. So for me, when I'm having those deep days, it's just like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And again, everyone's different, but I think I know for myself that if I'm having a bad day, there's something there bothering me. And I know that I need to, it's like a game in a way. It's like I'm a detective, you know?
I was just gonna say that. I was like,
I did that in my old job where I had to do detective work and I loved it. I love that. So sometimes when I'm in those states, for me, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And so, but it's okay to feel those negative emotions. But I feel personally, I feel like it's important for those that are going through those emotions to start discovering what is bothering you. Because a lot of the times, you know, you get into an argument with your significant other about, you know, you spilled some milk. Like, that's nothing to get angry about. But if you're noticing that you're responding irrationally to things, those are usually a first indicator that there's something that's bubbling up. And if you can, start focusing on what's bothering you at that point. And sometimes, even if you're trying at that point, you don't always know until you get to that day where you're like, you know what, I'm pissed off with everything and everybody, you know?
That's so true. I feel like, because often, like, you know, you projects to, you know, some other people. You don't mean it to be. That's why I feel like it, like, I love what you said, just to be able to, if you start asking yourself those questions of being able to really internalize, like when you do feel angry, even if it's for something completely unrelated. Because I feel like the hardest thing, even this is what I've had to learn, that's very hard, is to discover why you're upset. Sometimes you have no idea. Sometimes that's when therapists come in. If you can't figure it out, sometimes the therapists and, the additional help, they'll ask you just enough questions just so you can help you discover, because sometimes that's what it is. It's discovering what's really holding you back. And it can come out on, if you notice exactly what you said, those first steps with, something as simple as like spilled milk and you're getting like irrationally angry over something like that, then it's like, okay, maybe start thinking about, like at that point, start analyzing yourself. But I feel like back to manifesting, I want to say that I feel like a big part of it, and that I've noticed personally, is the more you manifest, the bigger you manifest, there's also those days I feel like that are needed, not to bring you down, but just those more challenging days where there's something that you have to let go of. So, because in order for you to manifest what you want, there's like a lot that you have to let go. It's a huge shift. That's why I feel like the more you manifest, though it's normal. Like you have those days and know that it will happen probably. Like I feel like I've been manifesting for years, and that is the thing that I don't know if that I hear a lot of people necessarily talking about it, but it's true. When you're manifesting something, there's usually those days where you just feel like you're at your breaking point a little bit. And the whole point of that is to get you to let go of something, because that is what's blocking you from manifesting what you want. And when you let that go, then you will start manifesting everything. They're just like blocks. It's like, you're on a road and then you have those roadblocks along the way. They're not like, as soon as you get through them, let go, you break free of them, you're good to drive again. And that's exactly like the road to manifestation.
And I think too, for people who know that someone's struggling with mental health, I know a lot of people who they're terrified because they don't know what to say or do to help. And that's the hard part, is that people around you, they want to help because they care about you. And sometimes that's why people need a therapist, because those people that care about you and support you the most, they're there trying to fix your problems. But you don't need them to fix your problems. And that's what I find a lot. And that's why therapy helps people, is that it's not a person that's around them telling them how to fix it. It's somebody that's listening to them and asking them questions for them to discover it themselves. And that's what I love doing too with people. And because I know sometimes people just need that person to listen. And that's why I love mindset, and that's why I love talking to people, because I might not be able to fix their problems. I don't know necessarily like great strategies when it comes to, psychologists and social workers. They study different particular strategies. What I do is I just try to listen and understand what they're saying. And if I have questions about what they're saying, that's when you ask. And so for me, even having a dog around, I felt like I just needed to express it and have somebody just listen. So for me, that's why I love having animals around, whether it's a fish or a cat or a plant, like whatever it is. I just needed to express it to somebody without, feeling like I always was already thinking like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling like this? And I didn't want somebody to like come in and see me talking to nobody, not even like camera set up, be like, what's wrong with her? So I feel like for those that like want to support, first thing, just listen. You don't need to fix their problems. And if they're asking you for support and saying, what can I do? What do you do when it happens with this or whatever? That's a great time for you to say your opinion. And people, when they're asking you, they don't expect you to have the right answer. They just want to know what you do. And so I think it's so important, because we're coming up at a time where we're hitting those breaking points. People are now acknowledging it's been a year. I was supposed to go to Europe last summer, and it's just like, well, that didn't happen. And now we're creeping on of, is it going to happen this summer? So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of people feeling like they've already lost a year. They're concerned about what's coming up with the upcoming year. So I feel like this is something that I've wanted to talk about, because there's been so many people I've been talking to being like, I'm struggling. Like, is anybody else, or is it just me? So I want people to know you're not alone. And no matter how strong you are, it's okay to have those days, and it's okay to have multiple days, but I feel like it's important for you to acknowledge when it's okay to have a few of those days and when it's time to step out of that and be like, okay, I don't want to feel like this anymore. What do I need to do to actually fix it? And I feel like that's a big thing, is whether it's you figuring it out yourself or you're going to external resources, whether it's a coach, whether you're investing in a program, or you're going to see a therapist, you need to actively make that decision to want to fix whatever it is, and make that decision of, I don't want to feel like this. I need to figure it out so I can get back to how I usually am. Well, that was a big tangent. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes,
I hope this helped. If you need somebody to talk to, or you have things that you need to get off your chest, comment below. You know, we're a community where we're here to support each other. We're here to celebrate your success. And even if it is that you got out of a difficult time, we're here to celebrate that with you. So thank you so much. Don't forget to keep going, keep growing, and we'll talk to all of you again soon. Bye.
Bye.